are we, folks? Dave Brown here with the New Populist. Thank you for joining me again. Well, it looks like we have to talk about Jeffrey Epstein because a lot of people are up in arms with the announcement that there is no Jeffrey Epstein client list and that the issue is settled and we all should just move on. People are very upset with that and for good reason. So let's talk about the Jeffrey Epstein situation. Now, the first thing I want to say is that we did have Biden for 4 years. And what happened over those 4 years to any information that the DOJ or FBI had? What happened to that information? And do you think that when Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, and Dan Bongino joined the government, that they just walked into a building and sitting right there was this beautiful file with all these names and video evidence that could implicate billionaires, blue bloods, former presidents, members of the royal family? Was it all just sitting there waiting for them? And the answer, of course, is no. And it's not just the Epstein file, it's also the JFK file. It's my opinion that anything in there that would be too damning would be removed by somebody and not just left there for patriots in the government to find and to use against some of the bad actors. So I simply don't think that the information is there for people to find. And that being the case, when you are in a position of power in the government, you're the director of the FBI, Kash Patel or Dan Bongino, the second in command, you can go to the American public and make claims that you can't back up. So initially, when the two of them said that there's nothing here with the Epstein file, he killed himself and that's it, I'm sure they were very skeptical, but at the same time, I think that is the information that they had. So they go, okay, it's what we have here. I can't say any more than that. Now, is that the only thing they could have done? Just say that they had no information saying otherwise? Perhaps they could have been more skeptical and say, I'm acting off the information I got, but I'm not happy with what I found, and I think it's suspicious. Perhaps they could have said that in order to give themselves some space there to at least plausibly, or at least, hint that they're frustrated and that they think something else might be going on. Perhaps they could have done that because we saw that video with Dan Bongino where he's saying, Epstein killed himself, and people are pointing out that he seemed very uncomfortable doing it. So, again, we can only speculate as to why he was uncomfortable, and in my opinion, it's because he knows there's more to the case, but he just doesn't have the evidence, and I think that was going on there. Now, Pam Bondi is a different story. When she did that whole act with the binders at the White House, I said either she's incompetent or she's corrupt. Which one is it? And I think the answer is yes. I think she is incompetent, but I think she's also corrupt. And she was the one person who got her cabinet position because the original pick was torpedoed. So that, of course, was Matt Gaetz. And apparently the Senate said, no, Matt Gaetz is not going to be the Attorney General. So his nomination was withdrawn, and then Trump picked Pam Bondi. So kind of interesting that she was the one person who was not the original pick of Donald Trump. She was the second pick, and I don't trust her at all. She, in my opinion, is corrupt and a complete moron. And from my perspective, it's like, okay, you don't want to talk about Epstein because, for a million reasons. have better PR, handle it different. Why have this whole thing where you invite influencers to the White House to get those binders that have nothing in it? All you're doing is actually stoking conspiracy theories. You're making it worse. So she's done everything to actually make people angrier and more suspicious. So why the hell are you doing that? I think that leans toward her being incompetent. But she's also, in my opinion, carrying water and also very corrupt. Whereas Cash Patel and Bongino, I think, have good intentions, but once you're in that machine, it's a whole different ballgame. And we do have rumblings that Bongino might actually resign because of how this Epstein case is being handled. And if you're at Bongino, you were making millions of dollars as a talk radio host, had a huge following. You gave that up to take a massive pay cut, and now your reputation is being destroyed because of your association with what people think is a cover-up. Why the hell would you want to stay in that? Why not resign? Say, hey guys, I tried my best. The system's too corrupt. That's why I resigned. And and now here I'm back on radio with you again, making a lot more money and saving my reputation. So I'll be interested to see what Bongino does going forward, because what does he have to gain by staying and have his reputation be ruined by being part of this? So we'll see what he does in the next week or so. Now that brings me to the commentators on the right and how they're handling this Epstein case. And there's three people in particular who have been very hesitant to really pursue this Epstein case. And in the case of one of them, is doing his best to convince people that there's nothing here. And those three people are Mark Levin, who I've talked about in the past, Ben Shapiro, and Dave Rubin. Mark Levin has, I think, 4 million followers on Twitter, big radio show for the last 20 years. And he has asked about the Epstein list in interviews, but he frames it as a thing where it's the Democrats who are trying to keep the names hidden because it's going to affect them more than, say, Republicans. So he's talked about it, but he's just scraping the surface and making this a Democrat-Republican issue, which it's not. Epstein affects everybody. It's a system thing. And then you have Ben Shapiro, who was saying people are engaging in conspiracy theories. Where's the evidence that he's all these things? Relax, calm down, move on, stop paying attention. So that's very, very weird. And then Rubin rarely even talks about it. I've only seen one clip where he actually even alludes to it. If you go through his Twitter timeline, X timeline, on the last week or so, zero mention of Epstein. And the question is, why are these guys so hesitant to really dig into this Epstein case? And if the rumors are true, if the evidence that we have now, is followed, Epstein is a Mossad asset. And who runs the Israeli government right now? It's Benjamin Netanyahu. He has been to the United States 3 times in the last 6 months. It's Benjamin Netanyahu. And who do these 3 commentators absolutely love? They love Benjamin Netanyahu. Mark Levin has interviewed him several times. Ben Shapiro has famously said that he would waive the born in the United States requirement to run for president for Benjamin Netanyahu. And Dave Rubin himself has interviewed Netanyahu, and all 3 of them are absolutely huge fans of Benjamin Netanyahu. So does that give you a little more sense of why these three guys don't want to pursue this Epstein case. If Epstein indeed was a Mossad asset working for the Israelis, collecting blackmail for the Israeli government, if he was doing that, it makes perfect sense why these three guys would not want to talk about it and why they want this thing to go away. Are they America first or are they Israel first? I think by now it is fairly clear. And now, finally, let's talk about President Trump. He was questioned about Epstein at a cabinet meeting, and he was exasperated, saying, why are you guys still talking about this Epstein case? And his response to the reporter was frustrating for MAGA supporters, and people are going, what's his angle here? Well, there are four possibilities I'm looking at here. One, compromised. Is he guilty of something? I don't think so. That's the least likely option in my opinion. Is he being threatened? Well, he has been shot, and former presidents have been killed. And exposing Mossad in Israel would be a massive, massive deal for a sitting U.S. president. Are there threats out there? I think that's certainly a possibility. Why not? Mossad is absolutely savage. What won't they do in order to protect themselves? So there's that. Then there's this. Perhaps the reason he wants to move on from this is that he's worried about the political upheaval. Let's say, for example, that you have billionaires, CEOs, tech guys, former presidents on this list. You expose this list, expose these people as being what they are, ebophiles, pedophiles, whatever, having sex with underage women. What kind of jolt would that give to our country? These people who are in power also have power to do things like wreck the economy. What would that do to our two-party system if all these prominent people were taken down? So perhaps Trump goes, okay, I could do this, but we are going to descend into chaos, absolute chaos for the next several years. So maybe his thought is, I would like to expose some of these people, but it's going to end up hurting a lot more people if he does that. So perhaps it's an issue of, I don't want to cause the upheaval. And the last one is leverage. Maybe he says, okay, I won't publicly expose people in order to make people go along with my agenda behind the scenes. I'll say, hey man, you might want to vote for my bill because we have this list over here and your name's on it. So maybe it's a leverage thing. Maybe he can use it to get what he wants done. That's a possibility. And then, there's the possibility that it could be three of these issues or all of them. Maybe he is being threatened. Maybe he is worried about the political upheaval. Maybe he is using it as leverage. So it could be a combination. So that's why I think it's going on with Trump. I don't think he's compromised personally. I think if that was there, we would know by now. So I don't think it's that. But I do think it's perhaps a combination of the other three. Now, one criticism of Trump here, you can't just let him skate here. You have to be honest. My problem with what he's doing here is that he should have tempered and been more reasonable about expectations going back to his campaign. If because he's seen, I think, the JFK files, and I'm not sure what he's seen with as far as Epstein, but he's seen some stuff behind the scenes, some of these files, RFK. If he knew that the intel community would never let him release a smoking gun if he knew that these files, when they were released, would be a gigantic dud. If he knew that, but was campaigning on releasing them and saying, I'm going to be the one to get these files released, then that's on him, because he made promises he knew he could not keep, and he was actually driving people and driving their expectations only to let them down. So if he knew all this, he should have been much more, not hesitant, but he should have been like, I'm going to do what I can. Don't expect too much. It's complicated. Something like that, where people's expectations aren't so high. He jacked them up. And you always undersell, over-deliver, not oversell and then under-deliver. That's what he did. And JFK file, I made a video about it, because he gave the responsibility of releasing information to the Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. And I said, he really set her up. It was kind of cold, because he knew that this file was a dud, and he didn't want to have it attached to him. So he said, hey, you want to be the person to expose the JFK files? And of course, she's very happy. Oh, yes, let me do it. Here you go. Here's the files. You do it. And then she does it. It's a complete dud. And then everybody attacks her for being the person who's releasing this gigantic dud. So he delegated this to somebody else, knowing it was garbage. And that, in my opinion, was a little mean. And unfortunately for Anna Paulina Luna, she was not savvy enough to realize that she was being given something that was absolutely just worthless. So what's that saying? Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Well, she should have, because she was made to look like a fool. So those are my thoughts on the Epstein file. We'll see what Bongino again does moving forward, whether or not he actually resigns. There's been rumblings too that Patel has talked about resigning. Certainly, this is not going to go away, and people are just not accepting it. So we'll see what happens. And again, I just don't think that this one particular case, the general public will be accepting of it, just sort of fading away and just becoming irrelevant. People are going to stay on this. The influencers, the pundits on YouTube and X and wherever, they're not going to let this go. So this is a thing that President Trump simply can't ignore, and it's going to just keep biting him in the ass until people get some sort of satisfactory answer on this issue. So it'll be interesting going forward to see exactly what happens. Well, that is it for now. If you're new to my channel, like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.